Okay, so as you guys can see of the title, I'm going to be talking about how I've been living with my dad for 2 years now. Alright, and I'm going to explain how I got to be living with my dad and all that good stuff and all that. We'll get into some details and whatever else. So, I've been living with my dad for 2 years now. My biological dad. In 2018, I lived in Arizona. I graduated from high school and everything. Right after graduation, my brother moved out immediately. He moved out here to live with my dad. And then shortly after that, I already had a job lined up out there for me. So I was working. I was making regular, I think I was making about $10.50 an hour. Not too bad. Starting pay out there. Yeah, so I was working, making about $10.50 an hour. So my paychecks were about every 2 weeks. It wasn't too bad. It was about every Friday, 2 weeks on a Friday. We would always get paid. Thursday night, though, we could always check to see what would be, how much we'll be getting on our little app thing that we had for our cards and whatever else. For me, I always got it slightly early. I always got it like a Thursday night at about midnight, just because I had a different way of getting it into my stuff. So I got it early, which is fine. So I was working for a company called Guthrie in Arizona. It's kind of like a daycare, but for kids that have special needs. Loved my job. Loved it. Wouldn't trade it for the world. Had an ex that I was with for about a year and was having issues with him, so I broke it off with him. Was supposed to come out here for a little family get-together for 4th of July and stuff. But before that happened, him and I had split it off. We broke it up, whatever. And it was a bad breakup. We had some words to exchange. Let's just put it that way. Never got physical, but just verbally had words to exchange to each other. And so before I went on vacation, I think 2 or 3 days before I went on vacation, he came over and I told my mom, I was like, Mom, he's coming over. She's like, okay, you guys gonna talk it out? Do I need to be here? I was like, no, we're just gonna talk stuff out. Don't know if we're gonna get back together. And she's like, okay, no problem. Just, let me know how everything goes to make sure that, you are at least safe. I was like, no problem. So we sit out in his car for a while because his car is all jacked up anyways. He had his old family minivan, whatever. So we're sitting there and we're talking, and we end up getting back together. He apologized to me for being I don't really know how to explain it, but he was scared that I was going to cheat on him, which I never did. I never cheated on him. He had this thing of wanting to go through my phone and want to know who I was talking to and stuff like that. I understand that he had some bad relationships before me, so he was a little insecure about himself. And not only that, but he was 300 pounds. He's like, I don't know how anybody like you, who is skinny and weighs 110, wants to be with someone that weighs 300 pounds. And see, for me, it's not the weight. For me, it's the personality, the way that they put themselves out there. He was comfortable in his skin, and that's someone I wanted to be with. I wanted to be with someone that was comfortable in their skin with no problems, with taking their shirt off just randomly, which was him. Nova? But yeah, sorry, my kid. And then him and I broke up again, but this time it was worse than what it was. So I get back from vacation, but while I was on vacation though, we were out here. While we were on vacation, he calls me up. Okay, I'm like over 2,000 miles away. He calls me up and tells me that his mom had gone off with some random dude. His mom is married, has been married to his dad for like 19 years. And he calls me up and says that she's ran off with some random dude. I'm like, okay, well, how am I supposed to help with that? Like, I'm over 2,000 miles away. Like, I can't help you. I'm not there. So he's like, well, I don't know what to do. My little brother and my little sister are crying and everything. I'm like, right now, just try and keep them calm. Just tell them, don't worry, Mom will be back. You know, she's just drunk and doesn't know what she's doing. Just try to cover, okay? Like, that's all you gotta do. Just try and cover for her. And so that's what he tried to do. And I get back, and not even about a month of me being, like, not even a month later, him and I ended up getting into a really big fight because I was supposed to go to a concert that a friend of mine had invited me to, and it was 21 and older to be there because it was a bar, there was drinking, and they don't allow anyone from 18 and under to go in, or like under 21. So, and he was only 18 at the time. So he's like, well, that's retarded. And I'm like, well, it's not what the band is saying, it's what the bar is saying. The bar is saying that they don't want anyone under the age of 21 coming in. That included 20-year-olds. And because I was 21, I was able to go. And he was all like, well, don't dress the way that you shouldn't, and blah, 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 blah. And I didn't care. I was going to dress how I wanted. My mom told me I could go because I told my mom, I was like, a friend of mine had invited me to go to his concert. He's paying for the ticket for me, and he's coming to pick me up, and I'm going to be there early, and I'm going to try and help him set up and all that stuff. And she's like, oh, okay. Well, that's fine. Just, do you have to work Saturday or Sunday? I was like, no, I don't have to work any of those days. She's like, okay, just be back in time so you can go to bed at a reasonable time so you can get it for work the next day. I was like, no problem. I'm like, more than likely I'm not going to drink because that's just not how I am. I don't really drink. Even now, I don't drink. If I do, it's rare, and it's like 1 or 2, max is 2, but I usually just have 1. But I don't usually drink. So I didn't drink. I didn't get to go because they ended up canceling it because they had too many bands, and they would have had 5 minutes for each band to tear their stuff down, and there was just like no way for them to do that. So they ended up canceling, and they didn't have any bands playing, which sucked because everybody paid for their tickets to go, which they weren't giving refunds on, which was retarded, which they should have done. So that was hard for my friend and his band. He really wanted me to go. He really wanted me to see them play live. I told him that I've wanted to see them play live since back when I was in like middle school. We've known each other for like ever. And but him and I, like a day before, went and hung out and talked and stuff like that, caught up, because if we went to this concert, once he was done on stage, we wouldn't have been able to really talk because we wouldn't have been able to hear each other. That would have been way too loud. A lot of people talking. Wouldn't have been able to hear each other. So we figured go to McDonald's, which is not too far from where I was living anyways, and just sit there and chit chat. I told the guy that I was with where I was going, who I was with, stuff like that. And I told him, I'm not going to text you back because I haven't talked to this friend of mine in years. I want to catch up with him. I can't catch up with him if I'm constantly texting you and I'm constantly getting my phone blown up by you. That's rude. That's disrespectful. I don't do that. So, of course, he got really mad at me because of that. And so I told him, I was like, you know what? I'm done with you. I ain't doing this. Oh, I'm afraid I'm going to lose you to him and blah, 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 blah. If you would have lost me, you would have lost me a year ago. If that's the case. So I told him, I was like, whatever, we're done. I'm not doing this. We're done. So then my friend and I were talking, and I told him, and I was showing him my phone, like how my phone was blowing up and everything, and blah, 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 blah. My mom texted me and reminded me to make sure that I get back home at a reasonable time. I was like, no problem. I'll be back at this time. I won't be late. If I am for whatever reason, I will let you know, but I'm not going to be late, which I got back like 15 minutes before I actually needed to be back. So we just sat in his car and chatted for a little bit longer, and then I went in. He gave me a hug, and he kissed me on the cheek, and I went inside. Now, we've had a crush on each other for a long time. It's just, when he told me about it, I was 15, and he was already like 17, 18 years old. So we couldn't have done anything. And not only that, but we were kind of far apart because I ended up moving to Iowa for a little while, which sucked. But that's a whole nother story in itself. But, so him and I split up. And I'm not really dating. I'm looking, but I'm not dating. I chat because I'm bisexual. So I was talking with this female that was in the process of being transferred into a male. So she was transgender, which I was totally cool with. And I was all for it. But it didn't work out between the two of us. It just didn't work out. So then I tried getting with this friend of mine that has been wanting to be with me for a long time now. We've known each other for a long time. Wanted to be with me, but he didn't want to hurt me. He didn't want to be, he didn't feel like he was ready himself. So he's just like, we'll wait. And in the process of waiting, I ended up talking to my now fiance, and we met up for the first time, and he didn't want to meet me at my house. He wanted to meet me somewhere else, so I told him that there's a QT right up the street from my house. I gotta go there to get something to drink, because then I gotta go to Walmart, and I gotta pick up some stuff, some hygiene stuff. My mom was gone for the weekend. It was a Saturday, or Friday. It was a Friday. It was like right after I got off work, I think. Or I didn't work Friday for some reason. So, I didn't work because my kid didn't end up showing up. That's why. But, so he came Friday. I believe it was Friday or Saturday. It was one of those days. And stayed the night. And we went to Walmart, picked up what I needed. On our way back, there's this little Mexican restaurant that's on the corner. It's called Filiberto's. They do like carne asada fries, carne asada burritos, and stuff like that. So I got carne asada fries. They were like $11 at that time because they were like $10.57 or something like that. $10.50. Add tax into that, and it was about $11 for carne asada fries. But you get a lot, though, which is worth it. And got there, got food, went back to my house, hung out, and whatever. We talked for like several hours. And then we did some stuff, if you know what I mean. And then in that process, we ended up going to sleep, and I met his sister the next day. So I was supposed to meet her that day, but she couldn't wait anymore. She had to go do something, and that was involving her kids or whatever. So she didn't get a chance to see me or meet me until the day that she had to come pick him up from my house. And he gave her the address and everything, and she came there, and I walked him out to the car, and I told him, I was like, text me when you get home, please, because, like, I want to make sure you get home safe, both of you, I want to make sure that y'all get home safely, so I know how crazy it is with the drivers. This is Arizona, so the drivers out there are freaking ridiculous. And so he gets home, texts me, And he goes, my sister asked if it was official. And I was like, well, I mean, yeah, I kind of is. So we made it official that we were together. And I told my mom about it. And my mom's like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. As long as he treats you well, I don't care. Whatever. I was like, yeah, he works. Granted, I told my mom, I was like, granted, it's under the table, but it's a job. And she's like, okay, no problem. At least he's got a job, unlike the other one. She's like, granted, it's under the table, but it's a job. I was like, yeah, you're right. At least it's a job, and it's not something that he's not supposed to be doing or anything like that. He's just not paying taxes, is all. And so, with that being said, would you stop? With that being said, it was December 15th when we got together. And so Christmas, I ended up going to my grandma's house, which sucked because I didn't really want to go. I mean, I did, but I didn't because every time I go, we always end up doing something that I don't want to do. But I had to go, so I went. And we took the dogs with us and everything, and I had to take care of the dog. My mom wouldn't do it. Nobody else would. I had to do it, so that sucked. Anywhere that they went, I had to stay with the dogs, which was retarded, but whatever. It was like I was being punished for something that I didn't even do. So yeah, did that, and then New Year's, I asked my mom, I was like, are we doing anything on New Year's? She's like, as far as I know, no, we're not going anywhere. I was like, okay, would you be okay, because I was invited to go to, my boyfriend's sister's house, and they're gonna be drinking and stuff like that. There's gonna be alcohol involved, like drinking. There's gonna be alcohol involved. There's no way for me to get home unless someone, sits there and stays up and sobers up. And by then it'll be really late. She's like, just stay the night there. But yes, you can go. So I went. We drank. We did all kinds of other things too, but we drank mostly. I mean, we went and got food and stuff like that. And so with us going and getting food and drinking, and we're just having fun. And so with that, that night I was just feeling off. Well, not that night, but I was feeling fine. I had at least one or two drinks. I wasn't like drunk or anything like that. 'Cause I've never been actually drunk. Go play. I've never been actually drunk before, and I don't think I ever will. But yeah, we were drinking and we had fun. Yeah, so we had fun. We had some fun doing what we were doing. We had movies going for the kids and stuff. We had some movies going for the kids and whatever else. And, was it January 12th? They asked me, actually, on a Friday, they asked me, Friday night, they asked me, would you like to come over Saturday and spend the night and just kind of chill and do whatever? And I was like, sure. We were going to drink and stuff. I told my mom, I was like, hey, we're going to drink. So are you okay with me staying the night there? And she's like, yeah, no problem. That's fine. So I stayed the night there. And while I was staying the night there, that night I was feeling kind of off, funny, like something wasn't right with my body. I had missed my period, and it was just, my body was not feeling normal. Okay. I had like a sip or two of my beer, and I felt sick to my stomach. I felt really sick to my stomach. And then, not gonna lie, I smoked a little weed, and that made me feel worse. So I was like, okay, well, I started feeling a little dizzy. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna sit right here. And we were like in and out of the house, so we had the door open and everything. They didn't have any animals, so the door was open, and the kids were running in and out, and we were just having fun. And I was just like, my boyfriend, well, my fiance now, but my boyfriend was sitting on the chair, and he's like, you want to sit on my lap? And then I was just like, nope. And I sat right on the floor. And I sat right on the ground. And they're like, why are you sitting on the ground? I was like, I'm dizzy and I don't want to get up. And they're like, oh, okay. So I sat on the ground, and it was cooler down there anyways, because it was pretty hot. This is summer. It was hot. So they're like, okay, no problem. Just, whatever. So I sat on the ground. And I got up off the ground, and we went inside, and we went upstairs because we were tired at this point. We were done. And so we went up to the bed, and yeah. And then that next day, which is the 13th, I get home, still not feeling well. I'm feeling sicker than sick at this point. Like, I feel like puking everywhere. It was bad, real bad. And hold on a second. It was just really bad. And well, with that being said, I was like, okay, well, whatever. I still had a pregnancy test from a while ago, and I had a digital, and I had two of them, actually. I had a digital and I had a regular. Well, my now fiance, his niece, who was, I'd say about 3 or 4 at the time, she just randomly, because she's in the backseat, she just randomly says, Cheyenne's pregnant. With no questions about it. Just, she's pregnant. No questions. Didn't say it while I was in the vehicle, but as soon as my fiance got back to the car to get in and to go back to their house, she randomly just said it. And so he texts me on the way home, and he's like, guess what my niece said to me? I was like, well, what'd she say? He's like, she said that you're pregnant. And I was like, okay. So he's like, when you get a chance, take a pregnancy test. So I had to drink a crap ton of water just so I could pee. And I went and peed on the stick, and I was like, okay, it's going to take a few minutes to, pop up. So I'm sitting there washing my hands, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. Of course, I had to hide it from my mom because my mom was home. I had to hide it from her. But, went and took it, went back into my room. I was talking with a friend on the phone, and I told him, I was like, I'll be right back. I gotta go use the bathroom, whatever. I had to take this test. And I said it quietly so my mom wouldn't hear it. I tried to say it like super quiet, and they're like, okay, just let me know what happens. And I went into the bathroom, did the test, washed my hands, dried my hands, went into my room. Before I even went in my room, though, I looked down at it, and it said pregnant. And so I went into my room. I had it hidden, though. Went into my room. I had it like pants on that had pockets, like baggy pockets. Put it in there. I went back into my room. So my mom didn't know. And I went into my room and I quietly, like I tried to so quietly tell my friend that I was pregnant. And my mom heard it. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to, because I was telling him, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to tell my mom, because she's not going to be happy. And at this time, my now fiance and I have only been together for like 4 weeks, and we're pregnant, just not even expecting it. Quit it. Not even expecting it. Pregnant. And so we're like, okay, well, what we're going to do. And my mom, I went out to do something. I was feeling sick to my stomach, though. I'm nervous. And my mom's like, are you talking to somebody on the phone? I'm like, yeah. She's like, hang up on them. So I hung up the phone, and she laid into me. She's like, are you pregnant? Don't lie to me. And I was like, yeah. I had the pregnancy test to prove it that I am. So I showed her. I was like, yeah, pregnancy test says I'm pregnant. She's like, great. And then she started laying into me about it. She started yelling at me about it and everything. And it was not fun. Then that was on a Sunday. Then my mom comes and picks me up from work on a Monday, because that's usually what our thing was I ride to work by myself, and then she comes and picks me up. And so that's what I did. I rode to work, and then she came and picked me up afterwards. Put my stuff in the car and everything, and of course we weren't going straight home. We had to go and pick up dog food, cat food, and we had to pick up treats for our dogs and treats for our cat, and it was ridiculous that we had to even stop anywhere. I just wanted to go home and be done with my day. So I told my doctor, or I told my boss at the time, hey, look, I'm pregnant. I have a pregnancy test to prove it, that I am. And I even told some of my coworkers, and I'm like, yeah, I'm pregnant. Not expecting to be pregnant, and my boyfriend and I have only been together for 4 weeks, and we're pregnant. And that night, I told my now fiance what was going on. And before that, before we even went into the store, my mom laid into me. And then she asked me, she's like, are you going to abort the baby, give the baby up? What are you doing? Because you haven't talked to me. I want to know what you're going to do. I said, no, I'm not giving the baby up. And no, I'm not aborting my child. I don't care if the child doesn't have a heartbeat yet and doesn't matter to you. It matters to me. So no, I put my foot down. I'm an adult. I'm 22 at the time. No, I'm not giving my child up. So my mom was mad at me, and I didn't care. I was crying, but I didn't care. I was crying because I'm pregnant, and all my emotions were all trying to come in at once, and it was just, I was getting anxiety attack. Basically, I was having an anxiety attack because of it. And I was having an anxiety attack because of my mom. And so, because of that, I was texting my boyfriend the whole entire time that this was going on. And while I was in the store, I stayed behind my mom. I was not in front of her. I was not next to her. I stayed behind her the whole entire time. Crying my eyes out, I stayed behind her. And I stayed at least 6 feet or more behind her. And got in the car, and my mom said, her and I didn't talk the whole way home. She yelled at me the whole way home after that. But once we got home, I went straight to my room, and my boyfriend, my now fiance, he told me, he's like, pack your stuff. You're not staying there. Because his, adopted dad, I guess you could say, as soon as my boyfriend, fiance, as soon as he told them that my mom wanted me to abort our child, that's where they drew the line, and they're like, no, tell her to pack her stuff, give her mom the house key, she's coming here. So that's exactly what I did. I gave my mom the house key. I told my mom, I'm moving out, and you're not stopping me because you want me to abort the child. And if I stay here, I'm going to be under stress because you're constantly yelling at me for just getting pregnant. Like, it wasn't something that I had planned. And she's like, well, I know you're not using protection. And I was like, how do you know? I don't do that stuff in your house. And I was like, and you're not the person that's, being, having that stuff with anyways. So how would you know if I'm not using protection or whatever? Yeah, I may not be on birth control, but that doesn't mean I'm not using condoms. And so I lied to my mom and I told her that the condom probably broke or had a hole in it or whatever. And I was like, more than likely it had a hole in it, because if it would have broke, I would have known. And she's like, well, I know you didn't have protection and blah, blah. I'm like, how the fuck do you even know if I did or didn't? Like, you don't know. So don't say that you know when you don't know. And then she went and told my grandma, which my grandma wasn't happy about because I hadn't even been into college yet and I didn't have a good, decent job and wasn't able to pay, I wouldn't have been able to pay for that and blah, 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 blah. Well, she may have been right, but it doesn't matter. Nobody expects themselves, even on birth control or any type of protection, they don't expect to get pregnant, okay? For me, I wasn't expecting to get pregnant because when I was with my ex, that I was with the guy before, that I was with for like a year, at that point, we were trying. So I was purposely missing my birth control. And nothing happened. At any point in there, nothing happened. I never got pregnant. I had possibilities. That's why I had pregnancy tests. But nothing. And after that, I had 2 left. I kept those 2 because you never know. And, so that whole thing happened. And then, so I moved in with him and his sister and his sister's kids and stuff like that. She had 5. So I was like, okay. So I moved in with them. And their youngest was like 3-4 months. I mean, he was little. And so then that happened. And then while we were living there, while I was still working at the time, I was having a lot of issues after my first doctor's appointment. Went to my first doctor's appointment. Everything looked good, all that. They wanted me to use their doctor, their OB that they had, which was a male OB. I didn't really like that idea. I know male doctors have more, they're more focused on what's going on because they like those areas. But in my opinion, I kind of rather have a female doctor because male doctors are known to, at some point, sexually assault their patients. Not all doctors. I'm not saying all male doctors are like that. But you never know which male doctor you're going to get that may do that to you. And I didn't need any more of that drama. I didn't need any more of that put on me. That I can get into later on. But I had been raped 3 different times in my life. I can tell you more about that later on. But for now, we're talking about this. So, get to that first doctor's appointment. Everything looks good. Didn't quite have the morning sickness yet till afterwards. Like a couple days later. Then the morning sickness hit because then it was really bad. Well, the first night that I got there, we had Little Caesars pizza, and I hadn't eaten anything. I was hungry. I was starving. We had food. We had pizza. Greasy pizza. And I ate it, which became a mistake because not even 5 minutes after eating the pizza, I ran to the bathroom and I puked. A lot. Not a little, a lot. I puked up whatever food was left in my stomach. It all came back up again. And so I told my boyfriend, my fiance, I told him, I was like, I just puked up all that, and they were going out to get sodas and stuff like that. So I was like, when you're out, can you just possibly get me carne asada fries, please? Here's my card. Here's the pin for it. Just please. So he's like, yeah, I can get you that. So I gave him the money and everything, and he went and did that for me, on top of getting the soda. Him and I always shared a soda. I didn't drink a lot of soda. But then we started having issues with his family. Not specifically the whole family, just one person, and that was his sister. And she wanted me to start giving her money out of my paychecks for not only gas to get me to and from work, not only money to give her gas to get me to and from work, but she also wanted me to start paying rent, which she wasn't even paying in the first place. And then she also wanted me to start putting food in the house, which I was giving my mom about $170 a month because I had I think it was like a $70 medical insurance bill that I had to pay through my mom because my mom was getting it through her work and they were taking it out of her paycheck. So I had to pay her back for the part that for me, which was fine. I told her that was fine before anything happened, before the situation that I was in, before I got pregnant and all that crap. Before all that happened, I was fine paying that because, I paid that. I paid $60 for my phone bill because that's what it was for me. And the people that we had, they were a little more pricey, so it was $60 for me. And then I had to pay for my own food, which was anywhere from $100 to $120, because it was just me. And, I found the good deals on certain foods, and I would get it, but my mom never understood how for 2 weeks I could live off of what I got for only $100 to $120. I wasn't even paying $200. My mom would go and buy food for herself, and she paid at least $200 every time. She never understood that. But going there and having to pay for food for everybody in the house out of my paycheck, I was only getting $350 every paycheck. That's not a lot of money. And if I'm getting 170 of that taken out, or 180 of that taken out, there's nothing I can do about it. Like, I literally would get $200. I literally have $200 left. And that's got to last me for 2 weeks. That is $10 or $20 for gas. And that's got to help me get a little bit of food for while I'm at work. So when I would go to the gas station, I would go inside and I'd get myself a soda and I'd get myself a snack for at work. But then I ended up getting fired because I couldn't make it in because I was constantly sick. I was so sick I couldn't actually move. I couldn't motivate. I couldn't do anything because I was just that sick. And this is my first kid, so I was sick. And so with that being said, I wasn't able to get a hold of any type of anti-nausea stuff. So I called up my dad, and I was talking with my dad, and my dad was excited to be a grandpa. He could not wait to be a grandpa. He was super stoked about it. And I was talking with my fiance, and I was like, well, Dad and I have been kind of talking about us possibly moving out there just because he's hearing about the situation and he doesn't like it. He doesn't like it for either one of us. My dad's very caring, and yeah, he may not know you, but he if he thinks that it's a stressful and if it's too stressful for me and it's too stressful for you and you're not going to be able to make ends meet or anything like that, he will take us out of it. Which in this case was going to be me moving back out here to Wisconsin. And so I asked him, I was like, would you be okay with that? No hesitation. Ran and got all of our stuff packed up and said, when is he going to be here? I said, he is going to be leaving in the morning and he should be here at this such and such time, this day, stuff like that. And so he's like, oh, okay. And I was like, yeah. So he's leaving early in the morning. And so that's exactly what ended up happening. My brother wasn't even awake. My brother wanted to come along, but that was not happening. So my dad came because there was going to be no room because we had to bring our stuff. So we had everything ready. It was some of it was sitting outside. His family didn't ask any questions about it. They didn't ask. They did not ask any questions. And they didn't ask if we were like staying or if we were coming back. We told them we were going to be gone for a month and whatever else. So that was the plan, and that we were going to be gone for a month, which obviously did not happen. We've been gone for like 2 years now, and because of that, we were talking about possibly, at first we were just talking about, oh, let's just visit. Then we decided, no, we're going to move out there because of the situation. Not too long after we moved out here, not even a month or so we moved out here, they were evicted from the house. I was like, oh, well, see, perfect timing because we would have been homeless. And I didn't tell my mom that I was moving or anything like that. We went to my last doctor's appointment. I was like 14 weeks pregnant or so. I was 13 and 6 days pregnant. I was almost 14 weeks. And so I wasn't quite showing it. I mean, I was kind of showing, but not that much. I mean, it wasn't noticeable that I was pregnant. So we get out here and everything. We get settled in, and I text my mom. I told her I moved. She's like, where'd you move to? I was like, I'm not in Arizona anymore. That's what you're asking. She's like, where'd you move to? I said, moved back to Wisconsin. She's like, with who? I said, with Dad. Who else? And she wasn't happy about that. She wasn't happy that I left without even telling her. And I was like, why? Why should I? Anytime I try to talk to you, it ends up to being you yelling at me because I'm pregnant. Like, why should I? Why should I? Why should I have to talk to you and deal with the stress of you yelling at me because I'm pregnant? Because I'm pregnant with someone that you apparently don't like, or you don't like how I got pregnant, or whatever. It doesn't matter. The deed is done, and you're going to have to get over it. And so we moved out here, and we told my mom, and I told my mom, I was like, it doesn't matter because the place that we were living at, we were about to be homeless. They were getting evicted. And she's like, well, you could have moved back in here. I said, okay, I could have, but where is my boyfriend going to go? She's like, with them? I said, no. He is not living out on the street. Not happening. And so that's why I told her, I was like, I knew you were going to say that. That's why I moved back out here. Dad was willing to take both of us in. And so with that being said, my mom stopped talking to me for a little while. And then while I was living out here, we were getting further along into my pregnancy. And we're like, okay, let's do a 3D picture of the baby. We weren't sure if it was a boy or a girl yet. But we're like, let's just do a 3D picture of a baby. My dad thought, girl, because of how sick I had been. And my sickness didn't stop till I was 15 weeks, I think, or so, 16 weeks or so. But we went ahead and made an appointment with Stork out here, which is a 3D ultrasound place that does and specializes in 3D picture. So that's what we did. We did that and found out that shit, nope, not a girl, definitely a boy. So we had a boy, and by the time I got to about 34 weeks is when I started to have complications in my pregnancy. I started having some really major issues. He tried coming at that time. He didn't want to be in there anymore. He wanted out, which was not okay because they weren't sure if his lungs were fully developed. They weren't sure if he was up to weight or anything like that. They medically did not know if he was safe for him to be outside the womb. So they went ahead while I was in. They went ahead and, gave me a shot for his lungs. And they hooked me up to the monitor. They were like, yeah, you are having contractions back to back to back to back. And they kept me for a little while. And then they're like, okay, well, they checked me again. And they saw that, that was better. So they're like, okay, well, tomorrow you'll have to come back in at whatever time you wake up or whatever, you come in, and we'll have to give you the other shot. Well, they called me and they asked me if I could come in early just to see if anything has changed, if I was having contractions again, if the baby was doing okay. They wanted to monitor him, make sure that his heart rate was doing okay and stuff. And so I was like, sure. And this was at about 8, 9 o'clock. I came down, I woke up my dad, and I was like, they need me to come in early just to kind of monitor me and the baby, make sure everything's going good. He's like, okay, no problem. I get down there, and I told him at the desk, hey, the nurses upstairs wanted me to come back in. They wanted to do a quick monitor just to see how me and the baby are doing, and I need to get the other shot for the lungs. And they're like, okay, no problem. We'll call them upstairs. So they called them upstairs. They came down. They're like, do you want to walk? Do you want a wheelchair? I was like, I'll walk. That's fine. I'm not in any pain or anything like that. I'll walk. So I'm walking to the elevator. At this point, I'm big enough to where I'm like waddling to the elevator. So I get over to the elevator. I get in the elevator. We get upstairs. We get into the room and everything. They put me in a gown. And they hooked me up to all the monitors and the machines and everything. And while this was all going on, I was having a bladder infection. I had a really bad one with him, so they had me hooked up to the IV for fluids. They had saline. I was hooked up to that. You have the water that has like the salt and stuff in there. I had that hooked up to my arm. Then in my other arm, I had something else hooked up to me. So they had 2 different things hooked up to me, which was fun. And which sucked. I hated it. And then they put the baby monitor on my belly where his heart was and everything. And they're monitoring and they're watching and they're like, well, it looks like you're having contractions still. And they're still pretty close. You don't feel them? I was like, no. They must be close. Even though they're close together, they must be where I don't feel them. Because I'm not feeling them. And they're like, okay. So they're like, well, we'll keep you for a little while, see what happens. Well, they ended up sending me the next day. They kept me overnight. The next day, they ended up sending me to Illinois, Rockford. And while I was there, they're like, did they do an ultrasound on you to see if baby's doing okay, how big his lungs are, how much he weighs, stuff like that? They didn't do any of that. I was like, no, they did not. She's like, they're supposed to do that, but okay. So they went ahead and they had an ultrasound tech come in and they started doing the ultrasound and they're like, everything looks good. He's head down. He's in the right position. He's faced and everything, which is odd because it's kind of early. They're like, it's kind of early for that, but that's okay. You're getting closer to your due date, so that's kind of normal. And I was like, okay. And they're like, well, you're dilated about 2.5 centimeters, almost 3. And because they checked me before the ultrasound tech came in. But when they got the ultrasound tech in there, they were doing all that. And they're like, well, with you being dilated about 2.5, 3 centimeters, he's definitely faced. So that's good. But they ended up checking to see if his lungs were good, and they're like, hold your breath for a second. I held my breath, and which is hard when you're pregnant. It's really hard to do that when you're pregnant because you're so used to breathing and not holding your breath. But I held my breath, and he took a breath in, which is exactly what they look for. When you're getting closer to your due date, they have you hold your breath, and they try to see if the baby's lungs are working. And sure enough, his were perfectly fine. They're like, he would have been, if he was born right now, he'd be breathing on his own, he'd be fine. We wouldn't have to hook him up to any breathing tubes or anything like that. And then they're like, now, the biggest question. How much does he weigh? Well, he already weighed 5 pounds, 12 ounces while he was in the womb. So they're like, if he comes now, you guys will be able to leave the hospital next morning. But they sent me to Rockford, Illinois, because they wanted to make sure that I had the best NICU system, just in case. So I had a almost NICU baby, basically, which would have been really, really scary. But thankfully, I didn't have that. I'm so happy. Because he came at 36 weeks and 2 days. No, 36 weeks and a day. I ended up having him at 2:50 in the morning. Perfectly healthy. He was 6 pounds even, 19 inches even. No halves or anything like that in there. He was 19 inches even. And he was perfect. Perfect. Big, but perfect. I had 4 stitches after having him because the doctor had to do a little slit for him to actually be able to come out. And then he made his own little cut himself. So it was a teeny one, which wasn't too bad. But of course, where he cut me, they couldn't numb me. So I had the epidural still in, and they were suiting me up, which was not fun because I could feel everything still. It hurt bad, but I knew how it felt. And then a while goes by, and everything's going good. Got one kid, and of course, during that whole mess, my mom tries to call me while I'm in labor, while, I can't talk to her. My dad refuses to talk to my mom. My fiance refuses to talk to her, too, because of what she did to him, and I don't blame him for that, because before we had moved out here and everything, she got in his face, and wasn't happy about it, and I wasn't either. Wasn't gonna lie, wasn't happy. It wasn't nice that she did that. And so with that being said, she tried calling me several times on my phone and then decides to call the hospital. So she calls the hospital, and the nurses in my room pick up the phone, and they're like, "Hi, this is Becky. Can I talk to my daughter?" Well, for one, no, because she's in labor. And so I ended up having a ex-friend of mine, now an ex, but friend at the time, get on the phone with her and talk to her because I couldn't. And I asked her, I was able to get it out of my mouth real quick. Talk to her, please. And then I wasn't able to talk after that. And so, of course, she tells her, hey, this is such and such. She can't talk right now because she's having contractions. She's in labor. We're in the hospital because of that, obviously. And baby's not here yet, so she's in some pain, but she's got her epidural in and all that, and she's letting her know what's going on. And so, with all that being said and done, finally she gets off the phone with her. Now we could just focus on me. Well, kind of, because now she's blowing up everybody else's phone. My mom is. And so I had my fiance in my room. I had my dad in my room. I had my friend at the time in the room. And it was just crazy. My room was crazy. And plus, I had a bunch of nurses going in and out. I had my doctor going in. I had a different OBGYN going in and out of my room, checking me, making sure that, I had the nurses checking me, and they're like, okay, it's time. So they called the OBGYN in. She comes in. She's a hardcore Russian lady. I'm sorry. I wanted to punch her in her face because with it being my first kid, I didn't know how to push a child out of me down there. Like, how am I supposed to know how to push a child out? This is the first kid that I'm having, and I don't know anything about giving birth necessarily. I've seen videos, and I've heard about, how you do it and everything, but I've never actually had to do it. So she's yelling at me, push with your bottom, push with your bottom. And so I'm trying. Okay, first of all, I have epidural. Okay, we've already had complications before right as we put the epidural in, with him, with this one. This one's my first one. And so, with that being said, while I had the epidural in, they needed me, because they saw that his heart rate was going down, so they needed me to get on my hands and knees. Well, I looked at them and I'm like, I sure the hell hope you guys are going to help me, because I can't do anything right now. I'm completely numb down there. Like, I can't feel my legs. My legs are heavy. I can't move them. So they're like, don't worry, you move the upper half and we'll help you move the lower half. I was like, okay, good, thank God. So they get me flipped over onto my hands and knees. They told me when you have a contraction, squat. And my dad was there, and he was watching the monitor, and he knew when I was about to have a contraction. So as soon as I had one, I would squat. Because Chad started paying attention. Well, my fiance. He started paying attention and noticed when I was about to have a contraction. And the hard thing was I was cleared by my doctor to go to Vegas to get married to my fiance. This one had other plans. He decided that he was coming right then and there, no questions asked. That was it. We were done. There was no going on vacation, which sucked because I really wanted to go. Never been to Vegas in my life, and that was going to be the first time I was going to go, and it never happened, and it still hasn't happened, which sucks because I really want to go. It would have been my first time going, but finally the nurses come in and they're like, okay, his heart rate is doing okay. They checked me and they're like, okay, well, it's time for you to start pushing. So they went and grabbed her, started pushing. Finally he comes out. My fiance is just in shock right now because he's like not there. Cut umbilical cord finally. They put him off to the side. They work on me. Then they bring him over to me. And I get to hold him and stuff. And while I'm holding him and whatever else, they're doing whatever around me. And then, excuse me, they asked me, is he going to be circumcised? I said, yes. I don't need that extra flab of skin there because I don't want to have to clean that. If you don't know what it is, it's where they cut the extra skin off. And yes, the baby is awake, but they do numb them so they're not in so much pain. But then they give you ointment to put on afterwards. So what I would do is I would just put it in the diaper and then close the diaper up, and I'd put it over the diaper and it would get on there for them. Be comfortable. It wouldn't be uncomfortable at all. But yeah. And so I did that. And with that being said, and that being done, they asked me, well, do you want to stay an extra day, or would you like to leave once we have everything done? I said, well, I would like to leave once we have everything done. They're like, okay, no problem. So that's what we ended up doing. We ended up leaving as soon as everything was all said and done. And once everything was done, they went ahead and got the discharge papers for me and my son. Quit it. And so with that being, what we needed to do, we needed to fill out the paperwork and everything. And so got all that done. And then got to leave. Well, as soon as we left from there, we went and saw my grandma and went to Walmart and all that stuff. And people were asking me, they're like, "You just had him?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh my gosh, and you're walking around and everything?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "I had 4 stitches after having him and everything." And they're like, "That's crazy. Like, you're doing all this and moving and everything after having him?" I was like, "Yeah, like, it's not that bad." He went to go get the straight cut for Dustin. Yeah, I know you're mad. I gotta put your diaper on. But yeah, so Tommy. But yeah, so with all that being done, we get to leave, we go do all that stuff, and then the next day after that, we went to the mall, walked around and everything, had fun doing all that. Yeah, go. We had fun doing all that too, so that was a lot of fun, walking around the mall and everything. It was not even that long after having him that I was doing all this stuff. And, things were good. He was getting bigger and all that stuff. Now we get to the point where he's 6 months. 6-7 months. I find out that I'm pregnant with our second one. This is in 2020. Find out that I'm pregnant with our second one. Like in February, I think it was. And I think it was like February 15th or something like that. Somewhere around there. And after finding out that I was pregnant with our second baby, I go and I make a doctor's appointment immediately. I go in and, really, mister? Really? Anyways, and they tell me that I have to have shots every week and get my cervix checked every 2 weeks. Mister! Hey! Mister! You're fine. Anyway, really, Nova? I get my cervix checked every 2 weeks. And then, I was doing really good. About 25 weeks or so, I ended up finding out that I had gestational diabetes, which sucked. I hated it. I don't like needles. But yeah, I have my lips pierced and I have a tattoo. But yeah, I don't like needles. I hate them. And so I do all that. And cervix check, I did that up until I think 22 weeks or something like that. And then they told me, you don't need to come back. We will cancel all the other ones. You don't need to come back because we're just to the point where your cervix hasn't changed. And we don't think it's going to change. So we're just going to cancel those. So they did. They canceled them for me. And once they were canceled, Now all I had every week was my shots. Every Friday, I had to go in and get that done. So I was seeing my doctor about every single week after this. After 25 weeks, I was seeing my doctor every single day, literally. Well, every single week. Every week on a Friday, I was seeing her. And I had ultrasounds periodically through that. I think it was like every 2 weeks I had an ultrasound or something like that. Then we got to the point where the main reason why I was seeing my doctor so much was because of my sugars. She wanted to make sure that everything was looking right and everything. They had decided to put me on insulin. Of course, I was not taking insulin. I was not doing that. They told me that I could shoot myself in the leg, I could shoot myself in the stomach. That is one thing I will not do while I'm pregnant. Nope. So, because I refused to do that while I was pregnant, I decided... I had decided that I wasn't going to do that while I was pregnant. And didn't take the insulin shots, which was fine because I'm fine and he's fine. But they started doing stress tests at about, I think, 30 weeks or so. 34 weeks, 35 weeks or whatever. They started doing stress tests. Everything was looking good there too. They're like, you have a happy baby. I'm like, yeah, I do. But then we started getting to the point where it was like 36 to 37 weeks. I started having some issues. I was having like really, really, really bad Braxton Hicks, which is like you're in labor, but you're not. It's fake labor. It's getting you ready, prepared, getting your body prepared for labor. So I was having those issues. On top of the fact that there was one day where during the day he was moving a little bit, not too much, but a little bit. And then there was just a time where, like, at night where he just completely quit moving. So I called them up and I was like, baby's not moving. So they're like, come on in if you want. And so that's what I did. I went in and they told me everything looks okay. It looks like he's sleeping. They said that it looked like he was sleeping, so I was fine. So I was like, okay. I don't have to be concerned or worried or anything like that. So I wasn't worried then. And Tommy, we went through that, and then they had me go in for another stress test. Come here. Jesus. And everything looked good there. So my doctor said that at 38 weeks, if we're going to do another stress test and if everything looks good, we will probably go ahead and take you upstairs and induce you. Because she saw on my chart that I was having some little issues, not major issues, but some little issues. And so she's like, well, we'll see what happens. If we need to, we'll take you up and we'll give you, we'll get you induced. Well, that didn't have to happen because at 37 weeks and 6 days, at like 8:30 in the morning, I came down to go use the bathroom. And by this time, we had my other son in a crib. And everything was going good. Came down, went to the bathroom, went back up, grabbed him, changed his diaper, laid down in bed. I figured we'll lay down in bed, we'll go back to sleep for a little bit, whatever. No. I started having some sharp pain in my abdomen, like down and below my stomach. So, because of that, I decided, okay, well, we'll just come downstairs. They weren't, like, super strong or anything like that. And, really, child? They weren't super strong or anything like that. So I was like, okay, well, we'll just sit downstairs. I put him in his pack and play at the time because that's what I still had up. And because I had that up still, I put him in there, and he sat in there. And then it began. The contractions started to get a little stronger, and I knew I was in labor when I had to get up to go to the bathroom to puke. At that point, I knew I was in labor. I kind of knew when the contractions started to pick up a little bit, but I figured, okay, well, they're not that bad. I'll just wait it out. And at this point, my dad's fiance is at a doctor's appointment, having, a checkup with her doctor. And I think that was about 9:30. They went ahead and, when they got back, they came up and grabbed me. I had to wake up my fiance because I was in a lot of pain. And he could have taken me in, but I was afraid he wasn't going to. We had to take 2 kids, and I was afraid we weren't going to make it. He would have been able to drive somewhat fast enough, but I was just afraid that we weren't going to make it. So I waited for Dad, and waited for my dad to get back. And he got back. He brought down the diaper bag for baby, and my dad's fiance went into her room, grabbed her bag because we had her bag made early because we weren't sure if he was going to try and come early or not. So we're like, let's just have a bag ready for the both of us early, just in case. So that's what we did. And that day, she comes up, grabs her bag, helps me down the stairs, because at this point, I'm like hunched over. I can't stand up straight now, which I thought was odd. Get down to the car, slowly but carefully and quickly as we could go. Get down there, get in the car, and I didn't even buckle up because I was just uncomfortable sitting, and I was having really bad contractions at this point. Now I'm having to really try and breathe through them. And we get there, having a contraction while we're there, sitting there at the front door. I'm trying to breathe through it while she runs in, tells the lady behind the desk that, hey, my stepdaughter is in labor right now. She's out in the car. Can someone please come and help me? And they bring a wheelchair out to me. They get me in it. They get me inside. They give us masks because we were in a rush. We completely forgot about our masks. And so they gave us masks, and they told her, go ahead and put yours on right now. So she did. And then they told me, do you think you could try and put yours on? So I went ahead and tried and put it on. But when you're in labor and you're having contractions and you're having to try and breathe through them, you can't breathe through a mask. So I ripped it right off my face. I was like, this is not happening. I ripped it right off. I ripped it to the point where the string wasn't even attached to it anymore. I just ripped it. And I get done, get upstairs finally, and it just slapped all over me. And the doctor tells me that well, you're definitely in labor. I was like, well, I kind of figured that after I started having contractions, because at that point I was 10 centimeters dilated, and there was no giving me pain meds of any kind at this point. And so I asked him, I was like, am I going to be able to have epidural? They're like, no, you're having him right now. I was like, but I need. They're like, no, we're doing this now. So they're like, we're going to talk you through it. You're fine. We're going to talk you through it. So they started talking me through it. They're like, okay, we need you to grab your legs and stop. we need you to grab your legs and push. So that's what I did. I grabbed my legs and I pushed. It hurt bad. It hurt real bad. Then they're like, okay, we need you to, as soon as you have another contraction, grab your legs and push again, which I did. I had another, back to back to back, I had a contraction. And with 3 pushes, he was out. With 3 pushes, he was out. Stop! With 3 pushes, he was out. And, since he was out in 3 pushes, hey, let go of my hair. He was born. He was 20 inches long, and he weighed 6 pounds, 12 ounces. So he was my big baby. He was a long baby too, and he still is a long baby. But once we got him home, okay, and we went to his first pediatrician appointment. Stop! God! Went to his first pediatrician appointment. And at this first appointment, they told me, how much did he weigh when he left the hospital? I said, he weighed 5 pounds, 14 ounces. And they're like, or 16, or 6 pounds, 12 ounces or something like that. They're like, okay. Or no, it was 6 pounds, 5 ounces. They're like, okay. When we got there to see his pediatrician for the first time, he weighed 5 pounds, 11 ounces. Something was not right. I was breastfeeding at the time. And they asked me, like, are you producing enough? I was like, I'm producing more than enough. I wasn't producing enough with my first one, but this one I'm producing more than enough. I mean, I was producing so much that I was lactating every hour. And he would eat only every hour to 2 hours. So, in the times that he wasn't eating, I was lactating. So I knew I was producing enough. It just, he wasn't getting everything that he needed, apparently. So what I ended up having to do is I ended up having to supplement. His pediatrician was like, okay, do you think we can supplement? And I said, sure. Whatever we need to do. I just told her that I needed to make sure. Stop! I needed to make sure that him and I wouldn't get type 2 diabetes because it ran in, I would have gotten it from my grandma, because my grandma has type 2 diabetes. And so with that being as a problem, with that being a problem for him and I, my doctor told me, if you can, try and breastfeed as much as you can until he is 6 months. Well, that did not happen, obviously, because right now he is 6 months. He'll be 7 months on the 17th, because he was born November 17th. No! And so, stop. So, with him being as small as he was, we were doing that. We were doing breast milk first, then formula. Well, then that wasn't working. So then she's like, okay, let's try giving him formula first, then breast milk. I was like, okay. So we tried that. That didn't work. So then at this point, I was like, you know what? He only likes the taste of the formula. We're just going to put him on formula. And it seemed to work. But, I mean, it was to where, he was, Nova! He was gaining the weight, but it was taking forever for him to gain the weight. I mean, forever to gain the weight. I thought it would have been real quick, boom, boom, boom. No, it took forever. Now he finally weighs 14 pounds. Even. Finally, at 6 months. It took me forever to get him to where I needed him to be. I'm glad that I got him to where he needs to be now. I just wish it would have been sooner. But now he's doing perfectly fine. I had him on Infamo AR Pro, I think it was. It was a 22 calorie count formula, which he's still kind of on, but not really. He's on Similac, which has been working wonders for us. My other one was on Gerbert, because I had not only food stamps, but I had WIC. With him, I don't need WIC because I have food stamps, and I get enough of my food stamps to get his formula plus food for my house to get for my other son, which I get him fruits, vegetables. I get him sweets every now and then. I'm not gonna lie, obviously, I'm a pudgy mama, but he gets all his nutrients that he needs, and then some, because I also got him this chocolate powdered stuff for him to help him grow, gain the weight, stuff like that. Make sure that he gains the weight, because I do not want either one of my kids to have to stay in the hospital because they weren't capable of gaining the weight. I almost was super close to that with my second one. Thank God we didn't have that. But I told his pediatrician, I was like, could it possibly be because he's got a high metabolism? And she's like, well, possibly. I said, well, me and my fiance, we both, when we were younger, we both had a high metabolism. Because when I was a teenager, I was like 100 pounds. And my pediatrician, my regular doctor that I would see, told my mom, don't worry about it. As long as she doesn't go under 100 pounds, she's fine. Which I never did. I always stayed at 100, or I would go up or go back down to 100. I never went down to like 99, 95, or anything like that. I didn't go down there. So at 15 years old, that was pretty good. And so with that, I didn't have to worry. The one thing that I was concerned about, big time, would you not mess with this? The one thing that I was worried about big time was with my second one was that he was going to have to be hospitalized. My first one, I don't have any issues with him gaining weight. I never have, and I never will. He eats like his dad. So, not that bad. But he'll eat his fruits and vegetables like I do, but his dad doesn't do that, so I do. And he sees that I do, so we try to keep him doing that. And with my other one, he'll eat those things, but he's eating jar food now. He's still eating, he still has his bottle, he still has his formula. But I'm hoping soon enough he'll be going to almost solid foods. But we're working on just different jar foods. He's been eating sweet carrots. I've been trying to find sweet potato because I want to see what his reaction is to sweet potato. He doesn't mind green beans and carrots. He doesn't really like squash. He hates squash. I gave him some squash and he spit it right out. And it wasn't like he wasn't hungry. It's not like he didn't want it, because he did. He just didn't like the taste of it. So squash is not his thing, which is fine. But there's going to be other things that we're going to try. Like while I was pregnant with him, I ate a lot of garlic. We put a lot of garlic in our food. It's just how we are here in this house. But we also did, like, my dad and I would make Brussels sprouts. I know a lot of people don't like Brussels sprouts, but if you make them right and you put certain seasonings on them, they actually come out really good. So I ate a lot of that while I was pregnant with him. And then after I had him, we were eating asparagus and stuff like that because I wanted to try and make it. So I made asparagus, seasoned it up just right and everything. So it came out perfect. And he's healthy. I'm healthy. It's funny though, because while I was pregnant, my doctor and the lady for the diabetes doctor herself was even saying it's not like you're eating unhealthy. You eat out like what, once a month or so? I was like, yeah, and if we're lucky, twice a month. And she's like, oh, okay. I was like, yeah, otherwise we don't eat out. We always eat in. I'm always cooking. And it's split up between me and my dad, constantly switching off and cooking. We're always switching up. So it's not like me just cooking or him just cooking. We're switching it up. And so she's like, oh, okay. That's good. And I was like, yeah. And so with that being said and everything, I think my first pregnancy was more difficult. Well, not as difficult as my second one. My second one was worse because I had to do more for my second one versus my first one. Hey, quit it. So, yeah. But if there's any other videos other than this one that you guys want to see or, have me talk about or whatever, let me know. And I can do that. I can talk about my rapes. I can talk about, what else can I talk about? I can talk about, how it was growing up with my dad versus my mom. And yeah, so I could talk about those sort of things. Just comment below. Let me know what you guys want to see. But for now, I am going to let you guys go. I gotta try and get my two down for a nap, and I will probably talk to you guys either later on today or tomorrow. All right, bye.